and get started. So glad you all are with me. So hello and welcome to this hour-long webinar where we'll talk about how to transition your home and also your life from a state of overwhelm into a state of order and ease. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Tanea Plowman-Kohler. I founded my business TPK Feng Shui and Design to help people live in inspired spaces. I want to tell you a little bit about my journey, how I arrived here in this career and became an expert in helping people create functional, streamlined spaces that support their endeavors and improve how they feel when they arrive home. And after that, we'll get to the meat of the talk, tips and strategies you can put into use in your own home. And I'll show you where to start, because starting is often the hardest part. And I'll show you things that you can put into effect right away and give you a path that you can follow to live in a home that energizes you rather than exhausts you, a space that is easeful rather than overwhelming. And then when you decide you want a greater level of support as you move forward, I'll let you know about a great free opportunity to connect with me one-on-one. So my whole life, I've been interested in homes, in the spaces where we spend our lives. And if you're here today, I imagine it's because you feel drawn to your space and you're looking for a way that you can improve it in a way that can also make your life easier and less overwhelming, less exhausting. Tools that will eventually free up your time so that you spend less time dealing with your stuff and your space and more time on the important things in life. I imagine you're interested in uncovering the beauty in your home. So I encourage you to use the chat bar on the right side of your screen to share with me, so we'll get the most out of this hour. But a bit about me. I have a BA from Williams College in Psychology and Art Studio, or Fine Arts. So I studied color, painting, drawing, printmaking, bookmaking, architectural drafting, and then finally settled my efforts, concentrated my efforts in photography. I had no idea what I would do with that combination at the time, but I'm happy that I felt the liberty to follow my passions, because those two pieces, the art and the psychology, are the foundation for all the work that has led up to what I do today. When I graduated from college, my mom bought me a housewarming gift for the first space I would call a home, Feng Shui for Dummies. It's actually quite a thorough overview. And that book started me on what has become a 15-year exploration in the art of Feng Shui as it's applied to our modern era in the States. You can apply the theories in a way that creates functional spaces, spaces that make sense, that feel right, that flow, that support and inspire you. So 8 years ago, in the midst of my personal study of Feng Shui, I began working as a space designer for a company that was building big box stores. So my day was spent almost entirely doing computer-aided drafting, floor plans, and renderings, working with merchandisers, determining how to best display their product so it would sell more effectively. I was putting into practice my passion for design and also my psychology training, the psychology of why people buy the things they do, how to persuade them you need their product, they need your product. But it wasn't the way that I wanted to use those interests. I loved thinking about spaces all day, but aside from that, I had no passion for retail. So I began taking interior design courses at night. All kinds of fantastic classes that I have found incredibly useful in the work that I do today. A good interior designer creates a space that truly reflects the people who live there. And while the content was fascinating to me, it became really clear that I'm not interested in creating spaces that look perfect. My interest is in real life, real homes for people with lives that are messy sometimes. My interest is in helping people create functional spaces that are at their core a reflection of who that person is, what is important to them in life. And mixed in there was a growing fascination with organizational systems. About 6 years ago, I started consulting as a Feng Shui and design practitioner. I love that work. It's incredibly rewarding for me to help improve the spaces where we spend a huge chunk of our lives. As we improve our spaces, our homes, and our offices, we see the effects reverberating through many different areas of life, creating an overall easing and balance in life that wasn't necessarily present before. I help people live in homes that better reflect the person they are today and who they want to become, rather than a home that reflects the past, which can then anchor you to your past in unhelpful ways. What I've found over the past 6 years in the feng shui and the design and the organization work that I've done in homes and offices, big and small, is that we all have the same problem. So what is the problem that we all have in our spaces today? The answer may or may not surprise you coming from a feng shui practitioner. We have a stuff problem. It doesn't always look like a problem. It can be nice, classy, well-organized, artsy, beautiful even. It looks normal, but it almost always feels a little off. Too full, stagnant, stuck, overwhelming, exhausting. Sometimes you don't tune into how it feels in that space where you spend much of your time, and you only notice the shift after the fact. So let me show you some images of my husband and my first marital home. Let's see. That's not it. Okay. There it is. So it was a 500 square foot apartment in Santa Cruz, California. Jean, you've seen that. It was this fantastic space in an old Victorian that was split up into apartments. I had already been studying feng shui and spaces for years, and I put a lot of love and attention into that space. Oops, I think I missed. There we go. Now everyone can see that. Okay. So here, here's the space after I got my hands on it. And here you can see a picture of what it looked like before we moved in, when the previous grad student and his wife were living there, pretty uninspired, kind of like a college dorm. And then the after picture again. We moved into that apartment from a much larger 1,300 square foot apartment back in New Haven, Connecticut. Before we moved, we got rid of what seemed like a lot of stuff, but not nearly as much as we needed to. So the saving grace was that our new place in Santa Cruz had 10-foot ceilings, and I came up with all kinds of inventive ways to use that vertical space. I added shelves to the outside of the closet on top of the crown molding to hold paperback books, which you see there on the left. I added shelves over the doorway to the bathroom, as you can see on the right. We put shelves into the closets that went all the way up to the ceiling. You can see how full that closet is. Put bookshelves on top of the electric heaters in the seasons we didn't need them, as you can see in the picture on the right, under the windows. It was all tastefully done, but that place was packed to the gills. We had way too much stuff, but I thought the solution was better organization. So for a long time, I simply added storage systems rather than really getting into whether or not we needed all that stuff. I had a good friend who was a personal organizer there, and I would always pick her brain about the best way to use our one utility closet. And I thought my organizational systems were the bomb. Like, I knew how to make use of a small space. And don't get me wrong, we did pare down over the 4 years that we lived there. We got rid of quite a few large furniture pieces, but the majority of the smaller stuff remained. At that point, I thought I was good at purging and had it pretty pared down. I wasn't ready to face the question of whether all that stuff was making me happy. Quite honestly, the question didn't really even occur to me. And then we had a kid, which brought into focus my priorities, and the real purging began. But I didn't have a system, and so ultimately, our 500 square foot space was insufficient for all of our stuff. But quite honestly, it was plenty big for us two adults and our toddler. The real kicker is that when we moved out of this apartment and back to Idaho, where I'd grown up, I stayed behind for a month in Santa Cruz to tie up loose ends at my job. And we left behind the big stuff so that I could live comfortably for a month. And then I staged pictures to show how different the space could look before we moved in and after we left. And these pictures you're seeing now are of after we packed up a 16-foot U-Haul full of all of our belongings and put them in our new home. I lived in that space for a full month before I joined my family up in Idaho, and I had everything I needed. After we packed up the majority of our possessions, the space functioned great. That was the beginning of a wake-up call for me. So the point of that is, if that story really is that stuff is cheap and it's easy to come by, and we all have more than we can ever appreciate in this lifetime. So I want to do a brief guided visualization. So humor me here. Close your eyes fully or almost fully. And I want you to picture an object in your home that you don't like. In place of an object, this could be a piece of furniture, a paint color, a room, anything really. And I want you to notice how that object makes you feel. And sit with that for a moment. It might make you feel weighed down or heavy. It's not usually a comfortable feeling, but resist the urge to think about something else. And I want you to notice where in your body you feel that weight. Often it will be in your heart space, right at the center of your chest, or maybe down in your gut. It's different for everyone, for every object. But just sit with that discomfort for a moment and really feel the weight of that object. And now I want you to picture an object in your home that you love. And notice the immediate shift in your body. How do you feel differently when you focus on that something you love? Often people will feel a lightness, the lifting of that weight. And again, notice in your body where you feel that lightness. Is it in your chest, in your throat, in your gut? And take a moment to soak up that feeling of lightness and love. Okay, you can open your eyes. So that visceral weightiness, that heavy feeling that weighs you down is why when I talk about clutter, I'm not only talking about the stuff that doesn't have a home, that collects on surfaces, the papers, the tchotchkes, the stuff that needs to be fixed, right? I'm also talking about the more insidious kind of clutter, the stuff that surrounds you that does not make you happy. And 95% of that stuff that doesn't make you happy doesn't need to live in your home and shouldn't be in your home because it is weighing you down. No matter how well organized it is, it makes the experience you have in your home less joyful. That extraneous, unloved stuff also acts as filler, stuff that fills up your space, that crowds out the things that you do love, the things that bring you joy. When you have too much stuff, when you have more stuff than you can ever appreciate, it causes stagnation in your space and in your life. And you can feel that in these pictures, just the weight of this space, right? They're pretty normal spaces. We're not looking at, hoarders here. We're looking at nice homes with lots of stuff. And the longer you have been in a space, the less you really see the stuff collecting around you. The more stuff you have, the easier it is to feel weighed down, inflexible, stuck in your ways. When a space stagnates, your life can begin to feel stuck, like what you need is not coming your way. So that stagnation and feeling stuck reminds me of the story of some close friends of ours who would come out to visit us every year. They have a daughter about the same age as our son, and we adore all three of them. They have always been really open with us about the challenges they have in their relationship. And being the feng shui practitioner that I am, and knowing that I could help them, and selfishly wanting them to stand the test of time so that we could continue to gather together as families, I inquired about their bedroom, which always has an effect on your relationship or lack of relationship, to see if it could better support them. And it turned out that in their bedroom, on her side of the bed, was your typical nightstand with too many books and a lamp and sometimes her laptop. And his side of the bed, in place of a nightstand, was the dog bed. Everything you can imagine feng shui saying about that sort of setup would be accurate. There was no balance between the sides of the bed, and you could feel this play out in their relationship. A lot of the time, he felt like he was in the doghouse in their relationship. She felt like he wasn't pulling enough weight. So I encouraged him to even out the space in order to represent two equals in their relationship and help them figure out how they could accomplish this and still have the dog bed in their room where it needed to be. And the next year when they came out, we had a similar conversation, and it turned out he hadn't taken much action in the space. I mean, that's not entirely fair. They had both cleaned out the workbooks from under the bed, and she had emptied her side of the bed entirely, emptied under her side of the bed entirely. He'd culled a bit, but no bedside table to provide some intentional balance in the relationship. And it became clear how representative the space was of where they were in their relationship. From my point of view, it seemed like she was taking actions to support their relationship, and he was not so much. He would talk about wanting to improve things, but his actions didn't support his words. And it's not like he's a total clot or emotionally unavailable. They are very active and busy people who are always out doing awesome things, right? Teaching their daughter how to cross country and downhill ski, hiking in the mountains, signing up for 5 cross country ski races in a season, weddings galore. But all of this left little time to maintain the stuff in their house. Their basement gear room was packed, full of old baby stuff. The decision whether or not to keep it seemed tied to the bigger question of whether or not they would stay together. Turns out, whenever they arrived home, they felt so overwhelmed by all the things to do, so exhausted by it all, that they never wanted to stay there. So out they would roam. I totally get this. I've been there. Getting outside and doing the things you love is really important, but it's all a balance, right? Spending time putting energy into your own home represents the energy you are willing to put into yourself and your relationship. Your space reflects your own body and life. Only when you decide it's time to put in the effort will you reap the rewards. In other words, how much time you spend attending to your home, giving it love and attention, directly relates to how well it will support you in your life. But it's hard to know where to begin. This concept has helped me define my life's work. I don't want to tell you what to do in your home. I want to teach you how you can design your space to support your desires and goals. And so these friends of ours, some months later, we finally made it out to visit them, and sure enough, the dog bed was still the only thing next to his bed. While we were there, we got into their bedroom a bit more and began to look at what was in there and if it was representative of a desired relationship. And they culled significantly. They pulled out the extraneous stuff from the space. Whenever you do this, it stirs up old energy. It acts the same way as a detox does in your body. When you give your body the chance to eliminate toxins by simplifying what you put into it for a while, your body will do just that, eliminate toxins very effectively. And it shows, and it'll show signs, your body, of lots of toxins leaving. So it will seem odd that when you're putting such good intentions into your body and such good food, you're seeing so much toxic stuff come out. The home is just like this. You start accessing the backs of closets that haven't seen the light of day in a long time, and with it, you are also accessing all of that old energy that is trapped back there. And for these friends of ours, in the end, that simplification of their space, that willingness to look into those dark closets and face what was inside, was probably part of what enabled them to realize they weren't right together, something that had been an inkling of a thought in their relationship for years. When he told his parents they were splitting up, it turns out they weren't surprised in the least. It was something they had been expecting for a long time. While fixing their space could have inspired a similar inspiration in their relationship, theirs was a relationship that had all of these problems before they even moved into that space to begin with. Poor feng shui will exacerbate existing problems, and after enough time can create problems that had not yet existed. Looking at your space brings clarity, both the clarity to know what is important, which very often will be the glue that keeps people committed in a meaningful relationship. But I won't lie and say that it will fix all of your relationship problems. What it will do is remind you of why you're together in the first place. It will make clear how fixable your problems are. While I never wish for that outcome, sometimes that clarity brings a couple the confidence to accept that life will be better apart. The point of that story is that our spaces reflect us and our priorities, for better or for worse. A stagnant space will keep you stuck in your life. Let's do another brief visualization. I want you to imagine arriving home. Open up the door you most often use and walk into your space And I want you to do something that we don't often take the time to do when we arrive home. I want you to take a moment to stop. Just pause in this space you've entered and take note of the first things you see. How do those things make you feel? Notice how the space makes you feel in your body. Maybe comforted, it's your space after all. Maybe constricted if the space is tight. Maybe overwhelmed if there's a lot of stuff around you. Maybe hungry if you see the kitchen. Maybe exhausted if you see the couch and the TV and you'd rather take a load off. Maybe anxious at the whole slew of things you see to do. Whatever it is that you feel in your body, I want you to sit with that, to notice how your space and your things make you feel without attaching to those feelings. And you can open your eyes. So everything you own has an energetic attachment to you. You can imagine some more cluttered spaces. Oops, you know what? I think I'm actually missed my slide. There we go. Everything you own is attached to you energetically. You can imagine it like each object, every single little thing that you own, whether it is in your house or in storage or in your mom's basement, imagine every little thing having a string attached to you. What doesn't bring you joy is like a weight. It pulls down on those strings attached to your energetic body. And in turn, it weighs down your physical body, sapping your energy. The things that do bring you joy are also attached to you, but they are like balloons that lift you up and lighten the load. Too many balloons can be cumbersome, but just the right number of balloons for you, and you can soar. All of this stuff around you makes it more difficult to feel your joy. It clouds your clarity like a haze that you have to see through. Too much stuff makes it more difficult to appreciate what does bring you joy. It crowds out the important things. Often in our homes, we have collected these things over a period of 10, 20, 30 years. It can collect so slowly, layers upon layers of stuff, that we don't fully realize the extent of what we have. I have some clients I worked with, empty nesters with a beautiful home on beautiful property. The home was a good size. They rarely utilized the upstairs anymore, and yet she confided that they had considered buying a bigger home to house all of their stuff. They felt crowded by their things. The clutter in her home drove her crazy. She didn't want to have people over because she was self-conscious about her space. It didn't accurately reflect the person she wanted to be. It wasn't like you or I would walk in and think much of it. The space was pretty representative of someone who has lived in their home for 25 years and collected beautiful things over their lifetime. But she felt a lot of resentment toward her husband of 40 years around the stuff, the clutter. He would leave piles of papers and books and reading materials in random places, and she was really frustrated with him about it. 90% of the time when I start working with someone, they are hung up on what to do with other people's stuff. This is super common. I myself was caught in this trap for years, always willing to purge my husband's or my child's things, but not my own. And sure enough, in these after pictures, you can see that a lot of the stuff that was cluttering the living space that she cleared out was stuff that she was responsible for as well. It was just labeled decor and photographs. I find that that embarrassment to have people over and that resentment of your family members is common, particularly when you live in a home that is overly full. Imagine all the clutter in your space like toxins in your body. All the places that clutter collect are like the organs in your body that collect toxins, the liver, the kidneys. These toxins clog the systems. They make life more difficult. They make you feel more sluggish. Just like the clutter in your home, it makes your space feel more weighed down, makes it difficult to find energy to start projects. Clutter is not just physical stuff, it's old ideas, toxic relationships, and bad habits. Clutter is anything that does not support your better self. Clutter is a toxin in your home. It provokes negative thoughts and frustrations. And when you feel that resentment, that frustration, that is the energy you are radiating into your space. So it's not just a single object that creates the toxicity, it is your reaction to that object, subconscious or conscious. In Feng Shui, clutter clearing is like removing the toxins from your body. It makes you feel lighter, more flexible. It gives you greater clarity of thought. Purging your home of these toxins and changing your habits so that you bring less stuff into your home is an incredibly powerful process. So why do we tolerate stuff's slow takeover of our spaces and of our time? There are only two reasons why we hold on to stuff that we don't use and don't need. The stuff that takes up real estate in our homes and sucks our time, the time spent organizing it, fixing it, finding a home for it, putting it away. Those two reasons, as outlined by Marie Kondo in her book, The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up, which I will touch on more later, are as follows. The first reason we keep things is out of a fear for the future. I might need it. I cannot tell you how many times I have said this and I have heard this about an object that has been sitting idle for a decade. When you hold on to something because you might need it, you are telling your future self that you won't be supported. And that is the reality you create for yourself. The second reason why we keep things is due to an attachment to the past, a past self, past reality, past situation. This makes sense, right? We are all sentimental beings, but that attachment to the past can do us a disservice. It can be a psychological crutch that we lean on. The best example of that I can think of is the story of my own attachment to my own things. From an early age, my room was my oasis. This is not my room as a child, but it has that same oasis feel. And I spent countless hours making it just so. And I was really attached to a lot of my things. My parents split over an extended period of time when I was in middle and high school. And I think I somehow felt a sense of security from all my things around me that I didn't get from my family at that time. And when I left for college, you should have seen all the stuff I took with me. 4 or 5 boxes, large boxes of tchotchkes, mementos, stuff, 2,000 miles across the country to grace my dorm room. I had no sense of paring down to the necessities. They all seemed necessary. Holding on is believing that there's only a past. Letting go is knowing that there's a future. So I know firsthand how easy it is to become attached to objects, attached to a past when things were different. It helps me have compassion as I help people through their journey of surrounding themselves by joy rather than sad memories. Because in the end, my boxes of things I sent to college represented not just a security blanket, but also my attachment to a life when my family was not broken. Did those objects bring me joy? At the time, they may have, but subconsciously they carried the weight of my family splitting apart rather than happy memories. And so letting go of those objects allowed me to release with them the pain and sorrow of that experience. When I went through the KonMari process in my own space, not only did I have more stuff than I would ever appreciate, and that stuff was crowding the things that I really did love, but I was really attached to my stuff. The idea of taking a closer look at my stuff was stressful. It would bring up a deep-rooted anxiety that I would feel first down in my gut and then up in my throat, right? And this is what I do for a living. Early on in my own process, I was not yet ready to let go of those attachments that I had to all of my things. That visceral feeling is enough sometimes to block you from starting. Working through those emotional blocks is hard. It's not always something you can do on your own. Sometimes you won't even realize you need to get through some sort of block in order to continue making progress. There's just some lurking reason behind why you haven't dived in yet. So we hold on to our things out of a fear for the future or an attachment to the past. Knowing that slowly helps us to become aware of these rationalizations when they come up. And that awareness is the first step in changing a pattern or a story that's no longer serving you, that's no longer true. But it's still hard to know where to start physically in your space. It just seems so overwhelming, so daunting when you think about your space as a whole and all your stuff. And it's frustrating sometimes that you do purge and you are mindful of what you keep, and yet your space continues to collect and feel cluttered. In the beginning of my career, I used to help people organize their storage rooms, pantries, garages, basements, whatnot. And I realized quickly that it didn't work. No matter how organized a space was, when we were done, within a week or a month, some relatively short period of time, that space would devolve back to its original state. And it's not like we were keeping everything that was in that space, right? There would be some bags that would go to the thrift store and some bags that would go to friends and whatnot. But there was still no lasting benefit. It was frustrating. I was looking for a way to make life easier for people, but the work I did for them didn't lessen the load, quite literally. There was still no end to the work. So sometimes that leads us to believe that we need better organizational systems. And you may ask, what's wrong with good organization? Oops, I skipped way forward. Let's see. There we go. What's wrong with good organization? You would think, as a person who spent the past 6 years helping clients deal with clutter and create more supportive spaces within their homes, that I would also be really interested in organizational systems. But what I've learned about fancy organizational systems is that their main purpose is to enable you to fit more stuff into your space. And so in the end, with your stuff more organized, you don't actually gain any relief from the clutter problem. You don't gain more breathing room in your home. Because when you have the same amount of stuff, even though it's more organized, there always comes a time when you or your family want to find something, and then it all comes out and you still have way more stuff than you want to be spending your time dealing with. I mentioned Marie Kondo before, and we're going to get into her system in a minute. She's a personal organizer in Japan, and her book, The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up, is a bestseller in Japan and now here in the States. I highly recommend it. She writes that organizational experts are hoarders. They want to pack the most amount of stuff as possible into any given space, just like I did early on in my career. The organization piece is not going to help you until you confront the stuff piece. It will always be the case that you need to purge significantly before you begin to organize and put your things away. All of the work that you do organizing before you purge is wasted effort. I hate to say that, but it's true. So I want to pause here and recognize that you may be wondering why a feng shui expert is talking so much about clutter. You may be expecting more feng shui content about how to allow more energy flow into your home, how to place your furniture, where to hang your crystals. So let's talk about that briefly. Feng shui looks to create optimum energy flow within your space, which in turn allows energy to flow into your life. Quite honestly, it's hard to create that optimal flow within your space until you've detoxed your home of the clutter. If you want to live in an inspired, dynamic space that doesn't stagnate, you first need to create space. A friend of mine and a fellow feng shui consultant explains it like this. Imagine you've been on a backpacking trip for 3 months, say, and you haven't showered that entire time. You arrive back home grimy and greasy, and you have this event to go to. There's a lovely cocktail dress waiting for you, beautiful jewelry, a handmade shawl, the whole 9 yards. You're not going to put that dress on without first taking a bath, cleaning your hair, doing your nails, all that good stuff. The same is true of your space. In this metaphor, the dress and the jewelry are like feng shui cures or arranging your furniture properly. And the buildup of grime is all the stuff collecting and cluttering your space that doesn't make you happy. You can't first place cures without purging the clutter and expect them to work. Just like you can't put on a beautiful dress without showering first and expect to make a good impression. And quite honestly, purging, as you know it, is not going to do the trick. You really need a system that has proven results to get you from where you are now, a cluttered home that is often overwhelming and exhausting, to where you want to be, a home that is orderly and inspiring and easy to maintain. So let's get into the actual system, how to declutter your home so that you never have to deal with clutter again. The decluttering part of the process that I use is Marie Kondo's system, or KonMari as she likes to be called. Her mission is to organize spaces so that they stay organized, so that we are not constantly dealing with clutter. I use her system because as a feng shui and design practitioner who has studied a lot about space and how to create spaces that fulfill us and make us happy, and also as a mother of 2 young children living in a home that is large enough to accumulate a serious amount of stuff, this system works. So let's break it down into 5 easy steps. First, okay. First, KonMari's sole criteria for whether or not to keep something in your space is, does it inspire joy? Does it make you happy? I remember when I first heard that idea, I really didn't believe it was possible to surround yourself only by those things that bring you joy. But I'm here today to tell you that it is possible. What brings you joy is personal. One student I worked with mentioned that family members were amazed at what she was getting rid of, and she thought, yeah, it's nice, but it's not stirring even an inkling of joy. Second, sort by category. Oops. Stick to my category slide. So sort by category, not by location. And you want to start with the easiest category and move to the most difficult. We'll go back to that slide, which shows us the categories. KonMari outlines a really specific order to follow to make the process as easy as possible. You begin with clothing and then books, papers, then you hit the miscellaneous categories like kitchen stuff, hobbies, cleaning supplies, etc. That's a big one. In our modern homes with so much space, that's big. Then you finally tackle the sentimental items, the mementos, and the photographs. The idea is that you move from easy to difficult as you hone your skills at feeling and identifying your joy. That means that starting by attempting to purge photographs, for example, would be a recipe for failure, because photographs hold so many emotional ties that paralyze our decision-making abilities and stop us from making progress. Also, starting by tackling the garage this weekend is not an effective use of your time. The garage holds lots of categories, and as a whole, it is overwhelming to try to tackle an entire location, and it won't get you the results you're looking for. So third, you thank the items that you release, and you keep the focus on what you're keeping, what does bring you joy. Thanking what you let go of seems like a silly thing to do almost, but it's a powerful practice that allows you to release things with ease and confidence. Releasing and thanking these items that do not bring you joy allows space for the exact thing that you do need to come to you. It spreads the energy of gratitude and abundance, allowing like energy to come your way. Focusing on what you are keeping may also seem trivial at first, but in order to be joyful in your space, surrounded by the things that bring you joy, we need to focus not on all the things you are getting rid of or need to get rid of, but on the things you are keeping, on that joy. The fourth important piece is to discard entirely before you organize and find a home for everything. Within each category, you must discard entirely before you think about how to store and organize your things. You will find when you go through your stuff that all of a sudden you have plenty of space to house the items you love. One woman in my course found that when she went through her clothing, she had 2 empty dressers in her room. And just before that, she'd been telling me that she thought she needed more shelves in there. Once you discard entirely, you find a home just once for every last thing. That seems more daunting than it is, quite honestly, and it's really important. You may know about the law of attraction, the concept that like attracts like. Whenever something new enters my home that doesn't have a home, it tends to get placed on the dining room table in the center of the action, and soon enough, there will be something next to it that was not put away, and before you know it, there's a whole host of items around it. Like attracts like. The fifth most important part The fifth and most important part of the KonMari system is to go through your stuff quickly and all in one go. In order to change your mindset, to change the way you see your stuff, and to change what you decide to bring into your home every day, you must go through your things all in one go in a short period of time. Sorting through all of your things in one fell swoop within a limited period of time creates a mental shift that changes the way you think about your thing, that changes what you choose to bring into your home. This process takes time up front, and it makes life so much easier in the long run. I'm on the other side of this once-in-a-lifetime event, and it is indeed life-changing. I have tried so many things that didn't work in the long term. It is incredibly rewarding to truly live in a space that is easy to maintain, that gives you energy rather than sapping it. I want to illustrate that ease of maintenance by telling you a story of my in-laws coming to town. You can imagine what kind of person I am about my own space. I feel self-conscious if my home is a mess. That's true of many of us, but since this is my line of work, I feel particularly self-conscious. And before I KonMari'd my space, it would take me a full day to tidy and clear surfaces and pick up and clean. I felt like I was constantly picking up after my family, and I resented them for it. That energy of resentment was, of course, the energy going into my home. And halfway through the process, my in-laws were coming into town. Life was crazy busy. My husband had been traveling. I had sick kids, one of whom was not yet a year old. I was shifting 180 degrees how I was operating my business. Life was way too full, and I had no time to clean up. I literally ended up spending like 15 minutes maybe picking up. And it was okay. It wasn't a big deal. The house looked fine. That was the point when I realized that my space was so much less full, so much less taxing, so much more free of clutter. I didn't feel self-conscious or guilty or upset that I couldn't get to it. My space was just fine as it was, and that continues to be the case. So what does a KonMari system look like when you put it into practice? Let's take clothing as an example, since that's the place to start. On a day when you have a nice chunk of time, you pull out all of the tops from your closet, just tops. Every single top you own goes into that pile, summer, winter, in the laundry, in storage, everything. And the size of that pile will probably appall you. I was flabbergasted by how many tops I owned. I had no idea. And then you pick up each top in its turn and notice the response in your body. Does it inspire joy? Oh boy, my slides are skipping all around here. Hang on a sec. Okay. Does it inspire joy? Does it uplift you? If yes, you put it in the pile to keep. If not, you thank it for its service and it goes in the discard. There will, of course, be that gray area for many people, the articles of clothing where your body's response isn't as clear. Typically, this is because the item doesn't bring you joy, but you're still attached to it for some reason. That's when you can begin to get into the weeds. The rational mind takes over. What if I need it? It came from that sweet little town when we were on vacation. I'll just try it on and see how it looks. And then you go down that rabbit hole. I point this out because it is easy to go down that rabbit hole and then come back up several hours later having purged very little. Your rational mind and your emotional attachments get in the way of feeling your joy. KonMari says that as you tidy your space, you put your past in order as well. And that could not be more true. Releasing the items that don't make you happy allows you to release limiting beliefs, the stories that you tell yourself, often subconsciously, that are no longer true. It allows you to move into a place where you are more fully your authentic self. What is important comes into focus. The process is simple, but it's not inherently easy. Clothing can be a tricky category, both because it can be your first foray into using and listening to that joy muscle. And so I've created a free 5-day closet challenge that starts on April 8th. It's an easy way to dip your feet in to test the waters to see if this process is for you. If you're on my mailing list, you'll receive an invitation to join. If you're not, you can go to my website, www.tpk, as in Tanea Plowman Kohler, fengshui.com, tpkfengshui.com, to sign up. This is a fantastic challenge for you if you don't enjoy getting dressed in the morning, if you feel like it takes forever to pick something out, if you have a closet that is too full to keep organized, if you feel like you don't have anything to wear even though your closet is overflowing, if you tend to wear the same things over and over again, maybe because figuring out a new outfit is overwhelming and not very much fun. And if you feel like you haven't fully settled on a personal style that works for you, this challenge will help you get to a place where that is more clear. Each day has a simple step that I walk you through, though you do have to devote the time. The work won't do itself. There will be a private Facebook forum to get support, to share before and after pictures, to ask questions, and to keep you accountable. It's going to be a lot of fun, and at the end, you'll have a closet that you will open up just to see how lovely it looks. You will feel joyful and satisfied and accomplished just looking at the space. You will be happy to wear anything in your closet because everything will bring you joy rather than dread and indecision. One of my students noted that she hadn't realized how stressful getting dressed every morning had been until she KonMari'd her closet. Afterwards, it was simple to get dressed, not a chore. Having a completed closet for most of you will inspire you to keep going. You'll feel so fantastic and energized that you'll be itching to move on to the next step in your home. And that's a good thing, because if you want a home where you will never have to deal with clutter again, you can't stop there. To deal with the problem of clutter, to live in a home that energizes you and inspires you, you can't stop at your closet. It's a fantastic starting place. It will give you energy to continue, but you have to hit every category, every area in order to release the weight of all those objects holding you back, tethering you to your past. In the work I do with people, we go step by step through the whole KonMari process, and then I add in the feng shui elements that will make the work you do even more powerful. At its most basic, feng shui is a system that enables you to live intentionally in your space. By that, I mean you use your home to physically represent the way you want to feel in the different areas of your life. Some of you have seen the Bagua map before. It's a feng shui tool, and it breaks your life into 9 different areas, starting with your journey or career area, then your self-knowledge or wisdom area, your family and ancestry, Gua, your abundance or wealth, then fame or being recognized for your talents. Then you have a relationship area, a children and creativity area, a travel, helpful people and community area, and last but not least, a health area right at the center of your home. We delve into how to use that map effectively in your space. We also look at the common feng shui problems and their cures. And then the clincher, the piece that is difficult to do without, is the mindful awareness. As we've seen, our things are so intertwined with memories and sentimental attachments. So aside from having a clear path, a strategy to get through all your stuff, becoming aware of your subconscious mental chatter is vital to moving through the blocks that will come up. And so I do a lot of work with people to move through those blocks, to shift your habits of mind, to unwrap those little nuggets of stored away fears and pains and hurts that we all hold. Because without that, your ego ends up holding you back, staying in that comfort zone. Even though it's not where you want to be, it's comfortable and it's easy to stay there. One of my students, a mom of 3, states that she said that she feels lots of shifts in many areas of my life. I feel clearer, I feel more efficient, I feel like I can manage more things with ease. I feel my relationships more solid, clearer, inspired, and joyful. As I have tidied my space, I have tidied up lots of areas of my life. The tidying feels like a metaphor for deeply cleaning old patterns, old habits, and lots of things that simply no longer serve me. So for those of you who are energized and inspired, or for those of you who need some inspiration specific to your space, I'm also offering an additional level of support. For the next 2 weeks, I'm opening up my schedule and offering free decluttering strategy sessions, a half an hour with me one-on-one over the phone. It's a time to delve really deep into your specific struggles in regards to your space. Oh boy. There's no catch. It's a really clear step that you can take towards saying, yes, I want to make shifts in my space and in my life. Getting back to that so you can see. Here we go. And you will have the help of a professional in order to make the most of that shift. It's a really eye-opening time. It's really a lot of fun. And at the end of the webinar, your screen should redirect to my website where you can sign up for a free strategy session, or you can go to www.tpkfengshui.com right now to get access to my online scheduler. I do have limited time slots available. So just to recap, I'm offering a tiered system of support. Listening to this webinar is that first level of support. You can take part in the 5-day closet challenge to really see that work in action in your space. And you can have one-on-one time with me to talk about your specific struggles. Each additional level of support will get you better results in your space. Clearly, you've made time for this because you are open to a change or looking for a shift on some level. Most people don't realize how much stuff they have and the full impact it is having on them, not just in their home, but on a grander scale in their life. So I urge you to look at your stuff and your space with fresh eyes, as if you're seeing it for the first time. We get so accustomed to the piles that collect. They just fade into the background, but still clutter our thinking. So I urge you to make some shifts in your space and let me know how it goes. KonMari states that once you finish this process, this once-in-a-lifetime decluttering event, that's when real life begins. The point of life, after all, is not to declutter. I want that to really sink in, because sometimes it feels like one big mess that we get to sort out, right? Sometimes life feels that way, but it doesn't have to be that way. Being surrounded by the things that bring you joy brings clarity and confidence into your life. I have seen firsthand in my own space and in so many homes the impact your stuff has on the quality of your life. Surrounding yourself by your joy transforms your reality to a more easeful, energetic, and spacious place. Before we close for the night, I want to walk you through one more brief visualization, and then I'll take any questions. Then I'll get rid of the slides and come back up and I'll take any questions. So if you have any questions right now, go ahead and type those into the queue. And if not, you can think about those a little bit. Otherwise, I want you to close your eyes fully or almost fully. And I want you to imagine walking into your home. Walking into a home where everything around you brings you joy, right? Boom, you're there. You've done the process. You're on the other side. You have a clutter-free space that feels dynamic and inspiring. It reflects you, who you are today, who you want to be. Everything around you brings you joy. And I want you to take note of how you feel in that space. And look around you for nuggets of inspiration, right? That visualization of your future space can give you inspiration on what to do in your space today. Is that space arranged differently? Are there key furniture pieces that are gone? Take a moment to look to that future space for clues about what you can do in the here and now to get there. I want you to take one more deep breath and soak in that feeling of being surrounded by only joyful things. And I want you to smile because it feels good. And you can open your eyes. So thank you so much for being here with me tonight. If you have questions, I am more than happy to stay on the line and answer them. Hello. So go ahead and type anything in that comes up for you into the chat bar. I know some of you can't utilize that feature as easily on your phone, but for those of you who can, go ahead and type in any questions if you have them. And while I'm waiting for any to come in, I actually had a question that came in earlier from someone who wasn't going to be able to attend live, so I wanted to take a look at that and answer that question. So I had a couple questions come in. So Chris in Bozeman, thank you for your question. She said, I've started the KonMari process. I'm partially through my clothing, but now I feel stuck. I don't know why, I just feel stuck. And that's so common. I'm glad that you asked that. And clearly we touched on some of that in the webinar, and we'll touch on that even more in the 5-day challenge. So I look forward to seeing you there. But here I'll just say that it's so common to start that process and sometimes feel really good about it and feel energized, and then come up against just stopping, right? Like you can't quite tell why you're not doing it. Maybe it's because you don't have time. Maybe it's because you don't feel motivated. You're just not doing it. And what I would say about that is that usually it's because there is some mental component. There's a block. There's always a mental component, but there's something that's come up that's a block for you. So what I recommend is to take note of what comes into your mind when you think about restarting, right? You think, oh, I really need to get back to that. And what pops into your mind, right? Like, oh, I can't do that because of this, or, you know, whatever it is, or that process didn't seem like the right process for me, right? Whatever it is. And sometimes it's really helpful to write those things down. So consciously say, okay, I'm gonna start this process again and just see what comes up. And writing those things down helps like bring them more into your awareness, because a lot of times those things, those blocks are going on in your subconscious mind. You don't have access to them. But when you start being more aware of those thoughts, they come into your conscious mind, and that awareness is a big piece, is a big part of what allows you to let go, right? So you become aware of it, and sometimes it's an uncomfortable feeling that comes up, and you let yourself be there, sit there with that uncomfortable feeling, with that discomfort. See how that feels, and just really let your body kind of unpack that, and take some nice deep breaths that allow you to clear out those kind of energetic blocks. So that's what I would recommend, but we will talk about that more in the 5-day closet challenge. So, so definitely sign up for that. And then I had one other question that came in earlier, which is good because I don't see any questions coming into the chat bar yet. So how do you know when you have the right amount of stuff, right? And it's a great question because KonMari, you know, the process doesn't give you a certain amount of stuff. It's not like when you have 100 objects in your living room, that's the right amount of stuff. When you have 50 books, that's the right amount of stuff. It's different for everyone, right? For somebody who loves books and loves reading and loves to read, right? It might be that they have 100 books and that's the right amount for them. And then KonMari gives the example of if you're a shoe person, if you love shoes, then you might have 100 pairs of shoes and that's the right amount for you, right? So it might seem like way too much for somebody else, but if you love them all, it doesn't matter. So it's not like there's a set amount of stuff, and that's actually part of what makes the process so successful, part of what makes it work, because there's all kinds of different challenges out there that you can do, like wear 30 clothes for 30 days challenge, so that you can see that you don't actually need much more than that. Right? And the problem with that is that that number is completely arbitrary, right? That number doesn't mean anything to anybody, right? Everybody is at a different level. And you'll know when you have the right amount of stuff because it will feel good. It will feel right. KonMari calls that the just right click point. And I find in the work that I do with people, people hit this turning point where all of a sudden it's like, oh, wow. This is amazing. And I can see that I've gone through my books and I've gone through my papers, and now I have the right amount of stuff in those areas, and I can't wait to finish my miscellaneous categories. And for me, when I hit the right amount of stuff, to be honest, it felt a little scary. It was a little, I hadn't yet finished the process, but I was pretty close to the end. And I had this moment where I thought, oh my goodness, like, I have so much less stuff in my space. And it felt a little uncomfortable. It felt a little bit like, oh, okay, I have this fear of like, what if I need more stuff? And that was just a fear that I had to unpack and let go of, because clearly it was not true, right? There's so many fears and so many stories going on in our subconscious mind, those limiting beliefs that hold us back that are no longer true. So often we tell ourselves things, and I find myself telling myself these things all the time, right? And becoming aware of them is what allows you to release them. But I find myself thinking things that are just so clearly, obviously not true anymore. And I've told myself them for so long, and they're going in my subconscious mind, and I haven't caught myself because I'm not aware of them. I don't have access to them. And so you'll know when you have the right amount of stuff because it'll feel right to you. It's kind of a non-answer, but it's true. Okay, and then I had one other question come in. So, oh, and it's a good one. Okay, so what do I do with the gifts that I don't love? Gifts, presents that people have given to you that you've held on to because you were gifted them, but you don't love them. And I love working through this with people because it feels really good to get to the other side of it. So what we do is that I have people think about it in a different way, and KonMari talks about this also. So if you've read her book or if you're thinking of reading her book, she's got great things to say about this. But basically, the purpose of a gift is that somebody thought of you, right? When I give a gift to somebody, it's because I think of that person and I want to give them something to tell them that I'm thinking about them and that they're special to me. And so the purpose of the gift is not for you to hold on to it even if you don't like it, right? And I used to have a lot of problems with gifts because I was, for years have been going through this process of organizing and decluttering. And then whenever I got a gift that I didn't like, I just felt like, oh gosh, like I really hate that. Like, why do you have to give me something, right? Which is not the reaction that you want to have when you get a gift from somebody, right? So now I'm really good at like being so thankful, genuinely thankful that that person thought of me and that they gifted me with that thing, even if I don't like the thing, right? And so when I get gifts, and this is particularly, pertinent at times when you receive many gifts, like Christmas time or birthday or whatever it is, because all of a sudden you have an influx of stuff into your space that doesn't have a home. And if you don't like some of it, then you have this kind of guilt associated with not keeping it. And so it's really nice to get to this place where I don't feel guilty passing it along because the purpose of that gift has been served. The purpose was to make me feel good. The purpose was to make that other person feel good in gifting something to me. And now I pass it along if I don't need it and I don't love it, because I know that it will bring somebody else joy if it doesn't bring me joy. Okay, well, you all are very quiet tonight. If you have any questions that come up, don't hesitate to be in touch. I love hearing what comes up for you in your own space. I love hearing your challenges, your struggles, your wins. I love hearing your questions, because if you have a question about your space and the process, then I'm sure that somebody else will also have that question. So I love hearing those questions. Please send them my way. You can email me at tpkfengshui@gmail.com, or you can go to my website, www.tpkfengshui.com. And don't forget to sign up for the 5-day closet challenge if that sounds right for you. I'm so excited to get that going. And I would also love to talk with you one-on-one in a strategy session to talk specifically about your space, because those group forum places are great for getting through some things, but it's not the time really to delve into your specific challenges. And the time to do that is in a strategy session with me. And I would love to talk with you. I'm opening up my calendar the first 2 weeks of April. You'll see my time slots that I have available. So please don't hesitate to sign up. And thank you all so much for joining me tonight. It's been a lot of fun. And I hope you've gleaned a lot that you can take to your space and take action on right away. This is Tanea with TPK Feng Shui signing off. Thanks so much.